Shut up and sit down.
Hello and welcome to the Fight for Liberty show. Today we have an awesome guest. If you've been watching the show at all or just pay attention to Libertarian Twitter at all, you know who this is. He is the Naturalist Capitalist, Reed Coverdale. Welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me back on.
It's nice to see your face again. It's been a little while.
Yeah, the world's been kind of crazy, and I've been working a lot of hours at the new job I have, so things have been busy for sure. So.
At least the world is back up and running now, right?
Sort of, yeah, some of it.
Some of it.
I think some people want us to think more of it is up and running than it is, but
right.
Well.
Are you still driving?
Yeah, so I work like 60 hours a week usually. 5 or 6 days a week, but I got a job out in Salt Lake City, and I'm hauling heavy equipment, and I go to all the western states, so I'm out overnight a lot of the time. It's pretty cool. I like it. So
sounds like a good time.
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of time to intake information. I'm listening to lots of podcasts, listening to books on tape, and trying to be as educated on what I'm talking about as possible, unlike 90% of the people online. So
I hear that for sure. That's one of the things I wish I had more time to do, because without being out door knocking, I can't really. There's no time where my ears are free for longer than 30 seconds to 5 minutes at a time.
I figured door knocking, you have an intake of stupidity instead, right?
Oh yes. I feel like I have lost many, many brain cells since I began campaigning. So we've talked about a lot of pretty stereotypical libertarian things. So given your occupation today, I want to talk about something where a lot of people might disagree with the LP on, and that's occupational licensing.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious how you feel about the requirement of needing a CDL license to drive trucks.
I think you should have a CDL. So when it comes to occupational licensing, my opinion is that there could be other ways of implementing it than having the government do it, possibly, and I'd be open to hearing those ideas. But you do need standards. But what I don't think you need is, for everything, you don't need education necessarily. So I did not go to school to get my CDL. I just practiced after work in the lumber yard that I worked at a high school, driving the truck around, learning how to shift, learning how to back up. And I just got like 50 hours of time. And then I went and took my test, and I passed. In New Hampshire, I think this year, they're going to require that you go to tractor trailer school to get your CDL. And it costs like 10 grand, 6 to 10 grand. And so now that gives ammo to the progressives to say, oh, we need to subsidize this schooling. It's like, why do you need the schooling in the first place? I passed the test the first try. So I think, with like more complicated jobs, there should be some sort of licensing. If you want to talk about a way that, the state definitely uses licensing as a vice to get money from people. That's obvious. So if we can come up with a different system, sure. But I think even if the government's doing it, you can have licensing for safety instead of for control. So, basically just dial it way back to the way it was 40 years ago. I mean, people had licenses 40 years ago, but you didn't need one for being a florist, for hair cutting. You didn't, right now, something that's related to the work I used to do. you needed like a different crane license in every single state, and they'd ask you these ridiculous questions on the test that you'll never run into running a crane. So it's just these like, just adding on all these extra licenses and then all these extra education requirements for getting licenses and just racking up all this money is stupid. And it also gives the socialists ammo to say we need to subsidize literally everything when we don't need 80-90% of the education, and a lot of the I'd say a lot of the lower skilled occupational licensing, you know, it's only for control and giving the state more money. I don't think it really has anything to do with safety or making sure that people are qualified for what they're doing.
Right. I would agree that there's, you know, some things that maybe you should have to have a license for. You know, if you can murder somebody else accidentally doing your job, then maybe.
Yeah.
Like you could kill a lot of people if you mess up doing your job. My sister, who's just got out of cosmetology school, she might give you a bad haircut. Worst case scenario, she doesn't mix the chemicals right and like burns off part of your hair.
Yeah. I mean, even with like more complicated things, it seems like if you can pass a test, like a really thorough test, then you shouldn't need education. I mean, the thing, it's not so much the testing, it's more the education, like the required years of your life and hundreds of thousands of dollars that they want. And that's corporatism, because the schools are benefiting from the government requiring you to go there in order to get your job. I mean, it's fascism, basically. That's what that is.
Right.
So.
Yeah, in like some of the worst forms, and yet we're just like, oh yeah, you need to spend 9 months in school to cut hair, and then spend like a couple $100 a year to keep that license up. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so I mean, it's just about common sense, and our government doesn't have common sense in any shape, form at all anymore. So,
in New York State, you need a license to be a dog walker.
So does that require schooling or just a test?
Just like it's not even really a test. It's more like a background check, like make sure that you're not some creep or pedo, and then you get like the stamp of approval, like, yeah, you can be a dog walker. You're not crazy.
So if you're gonna get paid to walk a dog, you need a license?
Yep. I mean, very few people actually have one. And there's a lot. That's why things like WAG are so big, because when you work for another company, they can have like a collective license, and they basically license you, which is they're able to do it however they feel like it. So that's why so many like big corporate dog walking services are getting big in New York State.
I mean, I don't get what the left doesn't understand about this. Like, the more requirements you add, the better it makes it for big companies that aren't going to be burdened down by them. If you're an independent guy trying to walk dogs, you know, it drives me insane. They just look at, you know, more intervention, more control, as though the government is looking out for the little guy. If you look at all the effects of all these stupid things, they benefit the very people that they claim to hate. You know, it's like, right. What's it going to take to wake you up?
Yeah, I mean, they are very good at helping out the people that they're supposed to be fighting. That's I think that's like the mantra of the left, is like, let's prop up corporatism in the name of the people. Which is why I think like libertarian leftists need to stop pretending that the Democratic Party is what they're looking for.
Right.
Or the Green Party, because they're actually worse, in my opinion, when it comes to authoritarianism.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
so
go ahead. Okay. I just like I'll ask you this. Do you think there's I do think there's such a thing as a left libertarian, but for some reason they're trying to say that like Bernie Sanders is a left libertarian. And I'm sorry, but no. I mean, if you're a libertarian, you believe in liberty first. You know, like you don't believe in the government just controlling everything and telling everyone what to do. What do you think about like left libertarian, what it means?
So I definitely think that it's a thing for sure. I've had a few of them on my show. I know you have too.
Mhm.
I just recorded something last night with Zach Joseph. So
Oh, okay.
you know, he's
Yeah.
I think the epitome of a like libertarian socialist. I have a lot of friends within the libertarian socialist caucus. Yeah, it's completely a thing, and they believe in liberty first, and that's what a lot of people on the right don't understand. Working with Yale, I was dealing with like mostly right libertarians all day, every day, and they believe that you know, I made a comment that like the Netherlands was more free of a country than the U.S., which I feel like objectively is true. But they argue, but the entire room that I was in argued with me. No, because they're socialists. I'm like, yeah, but there's more freedoms than just economic, and their economic lack of freedom enables them to be free in many other ways, including other economic ways that you don't understand. So just because they're slightly socialist, that doesn't mean that they're not free.
Right.
And that's what I think has plagued the Libertarian Party for quite a while, is just a lot of people that believe that, you know, taxes and guns are the two most important libertarian issues, when actually
Right.
just protecting the Constitution is. You know, somebody will be like, I want to get an entirely conservative Supreme Court so that we can overturn Roe v. Wade. I'm like, that's not libertarian. That's not liberty.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I've definitely noticed that on Twitter, because in my opinion, this is kind of going into another subject a little bit, but seeing Rand Paul up there on the Republican National Convention and praising Trump, I mean, it was disgusting. And what made me so angry about it was that he is completely destroying the message, because Rand Paul is probably, if you ask anyone in average everyday America, like who's a libertarian, they'll think Ron Paul and Rand Paul. Like they don't know any real libertarians in the Libertarian Party. They know those
Or
two guys.
Massey or Mosh are like the only other people they might come up with.
They might, but Rand Paul has way more name recognition. So he's like, he is the libertarian. So when he goes up, and some of what he said in his speech was true, like Biden is way worse on criminal justice and war, I'll give him that. But then he went into things about the economy and how Trump had built the strongest economy in the history of the world. I know that Rand Paul knows that's bullshit. And then, you know, what he was saying about fixing our healthcare system. And I mean, all the economic things that he said about Trump were just completely false. And what that does is, if someone who's been hurt by Trump's economic policies, or someone who pays attention, hears Rand Paul say that about Trump, then that pushes them away from the liberty message. Or if there's a person who does believe in liberty or libertarian principles, if they see Rand Paul say all these great things about Trump, in turn, they're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'll vote for Trump then, because if Rand Paul's okay with this, then I should be okay with it too. And in my mind, that's what he's doing. It's sheep herding, and it does way more damage to the liberty movement than help it, I think.
100%. His argument would be, I'm gonna play devil's advocate for a second and say his argument would be he's helping the libertarian movement by butting up to Trump, because Trump is the first president that's given him his ear, or any libertarian his ear, like in the history of the U.S. since like maybe Jefferson. And so him destroying the party and the movement in exchange for him being the important libertarian that's getting libertarian-y things through Congress and past the president, he considers that worth it. I think that's selfish and bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want Rand to stop talking with Trump by any means. I don't want him. I don't even necessarily want him to endorse Joe Jorgensen. I mean, I think it would be cool, but if
I want
he
him to
doesn't,
endorse Brad Barron.
yes, that's where I was going. He should definitely endorse Brad Barron, and he shouldn't lie about what Trump is good at. He could still say, yes, I'm going to vote for Trump because Trump is more likely to keep us out of wars. He's more likely to pass criminal justice reform, which are things I think are true. Those are both probably true compared to Biden. It's when he glorifies him as though he's like a bastion of libertarianism almost. I mean, in the speech, he said, there are a couple things I disagree with him on, but the vast majority of things, we agree. And I don't know how many people know this. Rand Paul votes against Trump, I think, more than any other Republican in the Senate. I'm not sure if that's right, but so
more than any other Republican, yes, that's a fact.
Yeah, so I mean, I think he could be way better about it. He could be, not alienating to Trump, but he doesn't need to throw the libertarian message in the drain over Trump. I mean, that he could definitely. I mean, Thomas Massey, I think, is doing a way better job. Like, he's not. He did get Trump angry at him over the CARES Act, but he's still a Republican. He's still supporting Trump, but he's not brown-nosing him every day and talking about how great he is. And
which is why he got primaried and Rand didn't.
Yeah,
or won't.
Exactly.
The
other thing about Rand is, you and I have both defended him vehemently on Twitter over the Anti-Lynching Act because that bill was complete bullshit. So he was right. Yes, so he was right to oppose that. But if you're going to be that principled, if you're going to oppose the anti-lynching bill, you're going to oppose funding for 9/11 first responders. Like, if you're going to be that principled that it's like cringeworthy to people, you need to be principled all the time. Like, if you're going to vote against the 9/11 first responders bill because we're spending too much, you had better never vote for Trump's military parade or any increase anywhere, like a border wall. Both of those things Rand voted to approve more spending for, so it's like if you're going to die on a hill over something like that, you need to die on every hill, because once you throw your extremely principled stances away to glorify Trump, you are irrelevant in my mind when you do that.
Yep, I'm in agreement there. I still feel bad for him getting attacked. Not that I think he's getting attacked. And he lost he lost most of my respect at the speech. Then he gained it a little bit back when he got mobbed. And I was like, a little bit of sympathy, respect, right?
Yeah.
Then he was like, I'm going to subpoena all of these people's plane records in case they're getting paid by George Soros to be here and attack me. What?
Yeah. No, he lost. Yeah, I was not impressed with that. I mean, his whole anti-big government, government tracing people where they are. It all just completely collapsed when he said that. And the other thing is
amendment again, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll agree with me here. I am way more terrified of the state than I am of Antifa or Black Lives Matter or any rioters anywhere.
1,000%.
I'm really not scared of anyone from Antifa, to be honest. I've seen some pictures, and the state has qualified immunity. Antifa doesn't have qualified immunity. Antifa doesn't have tanks. Antifa doesn't have, spying powers like
NSA.
Yeah, exactly. So, seeing Rand capitulate on that was actually I was shocked when he said that, with the thing about subpoenaing the member, finding out about their plane tickets and everything. I was just like, what? That was like, he's definitely compromised his values before, but that was like a complete 180. It was like, what are you doing, man? This is weird. So.
Yeah, I was not happy to see that at all. But Rand will be Rand. He will be a letdown 60% of the time. Just accept it. The other 40%, we can cheer him on. And I'm still dedicated to cheering him on in that 40%
Yes.
because he's the only person doing it. He's the only person that's tried to end no-knock raids in the Senate.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
say
I
her
mean,
name. It's in the bill, bro.
Yeah, that was so hilarious. Like, I did watch that video, and it was shouted at him at least a dozen times. Say her
Right.
name. It's just like, oh my god, you guys are so ignorant. But yeah, totally. Like, whenever, I mean, he is by default the best senator by far. I mean, I don't even know close. Bernie Sanders is probably the next one, and he sucks. So, it's.
I'd put Booker over Sanders probably.
Yeah, Booker's good on criminal justice and a few other things.
The weird thing that Booker is good on is school choice.
Yeah, he is.
He's amazing on school choice. Huge advocate for it.
Yeah.
It's great to see somebody in the Democratic Party adamant about school choice because he knows how shitty public schools can be, and he knows that school choice is important.
Yeah. I don't know if you noticed, he sort of shut up about it during this last run because there's just so much toxicity in the Democratic Party that you can't speak common sense and get anywhere. So he just didn't bring it up much. But.
Right. So I love the way that some Democrats fight against school choice. There was a Democratic primary in Michigan back in August that I was watching, and one of the candidates' websites, actually the person that won, unfortunately, said something about like keeping your tax dollars for you and not giving it to private institutions or something like that. And it's like, that's almost a Republican sounding talking point. Like that is worded so well. Like your comms director needs props. Actually, like her comms director really does need props. Her campaign was pretty solid. But that's some bullshit. Like school choice is making sure that you actually get to choose where your tax dollars go for yourself.
Yeah.
That's so much better and more democratic of a thought process, especially if you're including like a voucher system or something like that, which libertarians hate but Republicans love.
Yeah.
So, that's some bipartisan stuff that should actually go through and will never go through fully.
Yeah. What you just said about Democrats sounding like Republicans, I've heard that a lot lately. It's been shocking. I mean, especially with the defund the police and like break up police unions and like all this stuff coming from the left. I'm like, whoa, I never thought I was going to hear progressives screaming about how horrible unions are and about, defunding sections of the government, realizing that just throwing money at something doesn't improve its quality, that it just gives more incentive to waste and to get bigger and bigger. And I mean, I'm hearing them say this about the police. I'm like, yes, you guys are 100% right. So just take that thought process and expand it a little bit more. Like start thinking other areas of the government too.
Let's get rid of teachers unions next, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
DOT and MTA unions following, especially if you're a New York City person.
Yeah.
Like the MTA union is probably the worst in the city, and we have the NYPD.
Yeah.
And I would gut the MTA before I'd gut the NYPD. That's how wasteful and terrible they are as an organization.
Yeah, I mean, I think you should totally have the right to privately join a union that's organized by individuals that doesn't have state backing. I'm totally fine with that. But even in all of my experience with unions, I will never join one personally because I've seen what it does to a workplace. And it's easy to see in the workplace how you could transfer that into the police. So in the workplace, it protects lazy people. It protects the status quo. Nothing is incentivized to change because everyone is pretty much guaranteed to keep their job unless they do something really, really, really bad. And there's this group thought and production goes downhill. So you just like phase that into the police department, but now they have guns and qualified immunity So
Right.
instead of lazy people who don't do anything and don't have to worry about losing their job, you have people, shooting unarmed people in the back and getting away with it. I mean, so it's just a different level, but it's the same issue. I mean, in my mind, unions have almost become corporations. They've become what they were made to get rid of, especially if they have state backing, then they are a corporation. Basically, they have state backing.
Mandatory.
Yes, exactly. So
that's why that's the attack that most people are taking at it right now. Nobody's out there trying to bust up unions. We have a national right to work movement.
Right.
You should have the right to work wherever you want to work and not join a union because it's a waste of money and they're terrible and they're awful and you might not want to be a part of it. Right. So you have the right to not be. And the fact that this is an almost entirely right-wing Republican talking point, or right-wing libertarian, even a lot of left libertarians aren't a fan of this. And
right.
I don't understand how they can be like, yeah, coercion is theft, but forcing somebody to be in union and actually stealing part of their paycheck every week, that's
right.
Cool. It's totally cool. We're totally cool with that. No taxes.
Yeah, I've never understood that. It's very strange. I mean, that's why that left libertarian idea, people of that ilk definitely exist. But a lot of people think they're in that group and they're definitely not, because you start talking to them, digging into their ideology, and you realize, whoa, there's a lot of authoritarianism that they're just okay with, and they don't think it's authoritarianism because they agree with the authoritarianism. And it's like, no, I mean, I don't think everyone should be forced to own guns or forced to own gold, like those are not bad things in my idea, but forcing people to do them is not good. So, I mean, a lot of lefties, they think that forcing people to do certain things, that's fine. It's like, whoa.
Yeah. I mean, if you are pro coercion at any step of the game, you are anti-liberty. So if you are pro drug war, you are anti-liberty. If you are, and I mean that for any drug, I don't care what it is. If you are not pro legalizing heroin, you are not liberty, because that is coercion, that is force, and that is someone with a gun enforcing the rules that you want to impose on society. That is not liberty. So, a lot of these people, whether they're left or right, the right, they'll be like, back the blue, but I'm a libertarian. Like, no. But then the left will be like, Medicare for all and private insurance companies. I'm like, nope. Like, come on, guys. We know what the word means. Look it up in the dictionary. Liberty. It's not that difficult to spell. Like, are you or are you not? And if you're not, shut the fuck up.
I felt like initially conservatives were harder to reach. But I'm getting to the point with, I'm going to call them progressives, that there's just like this mental roadblock they hit where you try to explain how their view is authoritarian and they just can't get around it. And you try to explain to them, like, you need to think outside the box. Think of another way you can reach this goal without law enforcing your idea. I mean, a great example is, Medicare for all. There are ways around private insurance companies. There are these things called insurance cooperatives that, everyone who's in a pool is part of the insurance cooperative. There's no corporation as a middleman, and you all pay a pretty small amount into the pool. And then if someone in the pool has an accident, then the money just goes directly to the hospital to pay the bill. So there's no jacking up of prices. My aunt and uncle are in one of these, and they pay $150 a month for both of them for health insurance. I mean, that's way less. Yeah. And so there are ways that we can think about organizing and changing our healthcare system instead of, giving it all to a group of oligarchs and saying, okay, you guys can probably run this way better than we can,
Yeah, because they can't, and they've proven it. Check out literally any government program that's ever existed ever.
Yeah, and I mean the problems with our healthcare system are because of the government. Like people
All of
think
them.
they say we need to take profit out of healthcare, and it's like, what other? Okay, it's like think of any production in the United States that the government does not have its hands in. So like shoes, producing shoes. Think of how cheap shoes are and easy a variety of different types of shoes are to come by, or T-shirts, or
I like
like
talking about computers.
yeah,
That's my favorite argument there. It's like the government has never really messed with it that much, and they
mhm,
have gotten better, smaller, faster, and cheaper every
yeah,
3 to 6 months.
yeah. So you take housing, um, automobiles, healthcare, education, pretty much anything that the government has had its hand in with regulations and bailing out, like whatever the case is, whatever they've done, they've just completely jacked the prices through the roof. The quality is questionable whether it even goes up or not. And, you get stuck with a crappy product with 10 times the amount of money. And
Right.
I don't know what it's going to take to be like, guys, the more government you put into this, the less representative of what the people want it's going to be, because that's what a free market is. It's representation of what people and wherever that market is operating, it's what they want. It'll just be a complete reflection. Once you have all these controls jumping in and screwing with it, that's where you end up with discrepancies. And I don't know what's so hard to understand about that, but
Yeah, I think the problem is a lot of people, including like Republicans, everyone gets taught, if you go through a public school in America, you learn that we live in a capitalist nation.
right.
So you either say, "Oh, I like how this works. I like capitalism. So we're perfect, we're good, we shouldn't change anything." Or you look around you and you have two eyes that actually fucking work and you say, "Wait, this system is shit.
Yeah.
College is too expensive. Life is too expensive. My rent is $1,500 a month for a studio in like a shitty neighborhood in Brooklyn. Like the system doesn't work. How did
Right.
Jeff Bezos not pay any taxes last year? How did Netflix not pay any taxes last year? How did I pay thousands of dollars in taxes last year? This doesn't make sense." And so they say burn it down.
Yeah.
Because they think we're capitalist.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, they instantly go to social. If and that is going back to what I was saying about Rand Paul and Trump, by endorsing this system that we're living under, saying that it's in line with libertarianism, completely destroys any message we can have. Because as you just laid out, the system is so far from what we're advocating, but people will see Rand Paul, do that, and they'll be like, "Oh yeah, no, these libertarians, this is what they want." I mean,
Yeah,
pretty much.
which it is very, very, very much not.
Yeah.
And, I got called a leftist the other day because I got called a liberal.
Ooh, that's even worse.
because I said I was a libertarian. And this jackass couldn't figure out the difference, and that there were multiple extra letters in what I said. He just didn't hear them. He heard liber and was done listening to me. And these people, they don't understand what liberty is. They don't he was a blood red Republican, like conservative constitutionalist, but yet liber pissed him off. Like, you do realize that the word is based off of liberty, not liberal, right? Like the letters are closer, but you hate anything that starts with lib. So you you don't know what liberty is. You don't know what you're actually fighting for. You think that you're for freedom and liberty, but if you're pissed off at a libertarian, you clearly don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, Republicans can't think that anyone outside of their circle could be to the right of them on economics or be anywhere else but, a liberal. My username on Twitter is the Naturalist Capitalist. And I've had some Republican retweet me and say, I can't believe what these commies think sometime. And my name is Naturalist Capitalist. I'm just like, okay, I just give up. Like, I don't even know what to do at that point.
Yeah. I mean, I get shit for Fight for Liberty. It's like it's the word liberty. Like, it doesn't even say libertarian. You can't even get this wrong. Like,
Yeah.
And I've been also called a racist because liberty is apparently a racist thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the abolitionists were so terrible of people. Because those libertarians,
Well, that's why we're tearing their statues down too. So
right. I mean, Frederick Douglass, he fucking sucked. He was terrible for black people and the country as in general. Frederick Douglass. Can't stand that guy. I wouldn't even call him a libertarian by any stretch of the imagination, but abolitionists and anarchists have constantly been the movement of freedom the entire length of the country. I mean, Alexander Hamilton switched sides once he got power in his hands because, absolute power corrupts absolutely. But when he started out, he was an abolitionist. He was a revolutionary. He was a libertarian,
Right.
Then he wanted to start regulating things.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of hard explaining to people that we need to go back to the way we were like 100 years ago, but keeping all of the civil rights that we have now. Like we need to go back to that stage of way less government intervention, but without, we need to let women vote. We need to let, gay people need to be allowed to get married. So if we had the rights we do now back then, that's kind of what we need to aim for. What's bad? A lot of messengers are saying they just say we need to go back to the way things were, and they don't clarify what that means. So, people tend to put the wrong connotations with that message, I think.
Yeah, a lot of people don't believe that we could go back to Reaganomics without going back to segregation.
Right.
And that mindset just doesn't make sense to me. Like, you really think that making the world a better place economically, we're just automatically, like, everyone's going to turn into a shit person again and just be
right.
like...
Yeah. I mean, the other thing,
everything we've done for the last 50 years just because, like, we're keeping more of our paychecks.
Yeah, I mean... Someone told me, I think it was yesterday, that the free market would allow slavery and child sex slaves and all this stuff if it was a truly free market. And I was like, yeah, I know. So that's why the government exists, to protect individual liberty. I mean, like, we shouldn't sell weapons to Saudi Arabia just because it's for profit. That's why you have a moral system that protects people. I mean, I don't, there's like the disconnect that we can't have a free market because that means that all these extremities will happen. It's like, well, that's sort of why you have the government, to protect people. And then the things that don't violate your rights are what we can freely trade with each other, and the government can fuck off in relation to those.
Right. But too many people think that you can't have libertarianism without, like, full unbridled anarchy.
Right.
Because they don't understand, like, how the Constitution was written as a libertarian document. They don't understand the Federalist Papers. They don't understand, like, everything that Jefferson, Madison, and Monroe did in their presidencies. They don't understand anything, really. So they just mush everyone together. If you are on the right, you are Reagan, you are Trump, you are the worst, and there's no coming back from that. And if you are on the left, from the right point of view, if you are on the left, you are Mao, you are Stalin, you are Hitler. Yeah.
That's honestly what I love about Spike Cohen and Joe Jorgensen. Any criticism you want of them, but their messaging this year has just been on point, I think. Like, watching their ads, hearing their speeches, like, there's no praising of Reagan, no praising of, like, the typical right-wing libertarian crap. And then, the libertarianism in their mind is obviously its own thing. It's just the idea of liberty and the government not telling you what to do. They haven't been doing this. Oh, we're like Republicans as far as economics go, and we're like Democrats as far as civil liberties go. I mean, they blatantly say that both parties have completely abandoned any of those principles that they used to have, and this is what libertarianism is, and it's for everybody. And they, I was watching her War on Drugs ad that she just released, and it took shots at everybody. It was
solid.
Amazing. It's the best ad I've ever seen.
Yeah, her ads are great, and too many people don't watch them, and they just like check her Twitter feed, or actually no, most people that I know that have big problems with her don't even check her Twitter feed. They check Tom Woods' Twitter feed, or Dave Smith's Twitter feed, or some lefty like Adam Bates's Twitter feed, and they only get her message filtered through what other people want to say. So if they're looking at Tom Woods, who's taken shots at her almost nonstop since she got the nomination, and Hornberger dropped off the face of the earth, I don't miss him at all. He's been taking shots at her since the beginning. So when she tweeted, "It's not enough to not be racist, you must be actively anti-racist," hashtag Black Lives Matter, fucking shitstorm that got caused because of that, that's still going on 3.5 months later.
Right.
I talk to people on a daily basis that say, "Oh, I mean, she was great, but now she's just like catering to the commies." Because of one tweet 3.5 months ago, because that is all these fucking right-wing libertarians want to talk about.
Right.
All they want to talk about is, "Oh, she said Black Lives Matter, she must be a commie."
Yeah, I mean, look at her policies. You're not going to... She is by far the least communist out of all four major parties running. I mean, it's not even close. And she's said several times in interviews that she does not endorse the politics of Black Lives Matter. So, I mean, I don't know what you do. The other thing I'll say is what's annoying is, Tom Woods, Dave Smith, Jack Hunter, Cliff Maloney, like all these people went yeah, I gotta be careful. Yeah, sorry.
No, I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Take shots. Go for it.
But, when Justin Amash was in, and he was my first choice as well, they were just like tweeting out a ton of stuff about him every day, and it was great. And then he dropped out, and they've barely said like anything about Jo Jorgensen. I don't know if Cliff Maloney has tweeted once about her. I don't think Jack Hunter has. I think maybe Nick Gillespie has like once or twice. But
Nick's been all right. At least Nick's been taking shots at both sides pretty heavily. He hasn't been doing a lot of Joe promotion, but I mean, him and Reason are taking shots at Biden and Harris all day, and it's beautiful. But so, I'm okay if he spends his time doing that, because Reason is putting out the best attack ads against Harris and Biden that have ever been seen, better than Trump will ever come up with. So, Nick, you keep doing your thing. I'm cool. But and Dave had her on the show. Tom hasn't still, to the best of my knowledge. But yeah, I mean, these people, and some of the other people that you mentioned, I watched them take shots at Amash too. I mean, Hornberger just endlessly took shots at Amash, and Smith and Woods kind of backed him up on those. Yeah. And dude, you're taking shots at the only libertarian congressman in American history.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is what I told a lot of Tulsi supporters who were angry about the Jo Jorgensen saying whatever she did about Tulsi being a socialist. And I was like, guys, you just don't know libertarian politics. Like, Jacob Hornberger was calling Justin Amash a socialist. I mean, it's what libertarian politicians do. Like, you're taking it too personally. And I shared some of the debate interactions that Amash and Hornberger had, and I showed them to some of the Tulsi supporters. I was like, you guys have no idea. Like, if this guy had been our nominee, oh my God.
Right.
So much.
But it could have been so much worse for every left libertarian. Hornberger was never going to win, though. Let's be real. I did not think that it was going to be Joe Jorgensen until like 3 weeks before the election. I'll fully admit that. I discounted her back in January. I was like, she's about to be out. As soon as Soraya Foss, however the heck you pronounce her last name, when she dropped, I was like, Jorgensen's next.
Yeah.
Not in any kind of a sexist way. Neither of them were getting any kind of support. And I mean, the Libertarian Party has been fairly sexist for the last couple of years. I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Our first nominees were a gay man and a woman, but we haven't had a female on the ticket for, I think, since Joe was the VP nominee in 96. I could be wrong about that. But so I was just like, no, she's never going to. I was thinking maybe Mons. I don't know. I didn't know who the Prags were going to pick because it was all jumbled. I was hoping it was Amash. As soon as he dropped out, I was like, we're fucked.
Yeah. I mean, as you know, I was into Tulsi during the primary, so I didn't pay attention at all. And then after she dropped out, Hornberger seemed like the de facto leader. And I actually I'll still say this. Like, I probably agree with Hornberger in 90% of the issues. It's just his delivery. It's not so much what he believes. It's how vindictive and divisive and hateful he is. That's what I didn't like. So I found out about him and I looked at his views. I was like, okay, this guy's cool. And then I started watching the debates, and especially when Amash came in. And I was just like, whoa, we do not want this guy. I mean, I feel like we'd survive nominating Vermin Supreme. Like, it would hurt probably for a little while, but we'd get over it. Like, we probably would
have gotten the federal funding out of it, so it would have been fine.
Yeah.
Vermin would have gotten us 5%. I hold true to that opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think you would have been I didn't vote, or I wouldn't have voted for him. I wasn't at the convention. I wouldn't have voted for him. I would have voted for Joe Jorgensen, most likely. Actually, scratch that. I would have voted for Nick Sarwark. There were multiple write-ins for him, and I probably would have been one of them. Because I didn't like any of the choices. It was as bad as the Dems towards the end. Once Williamson, Yang, Tulsi, all of them were out, I was like, this is just shit. And that's kind of how I felt about the Libertarian one too. Might have supported Jim Gray in the end. I don't know.
In relation to Libertarians, though, like they're way better than what the Democrats and Republicans ended up with. But as far as Libertarians go, it's like the same idea. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I have a couple of friends that are fairly like anti-Joe, and like since the nomination, I have one idiot that I talk to on a regular basis. He worked on my city council campaign, so I owe him friendship, I guess. But he believes that Joe Jorgensen is the libertarian version of Hillary Clinton.
Interesting.
She is an old white lady who is part of the party establishment, who has held a place in the party establishment since she played second fiddle to some other guy back in the 90s. Like, I mean, yeah, there are some parallels there. She's doing a fantastic job. You said like their ads have been pretty amazing. Her social media has been keeping up pretty well. She has been doing events almost every single day. So is Spike. They're split up, so they're covering double ground. It's been solid the last couple of months, and I do not want to take shots at Joe at all, but there are a couple shots to be taken, and like like she is definitely kind of a milquetoast candidate.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I like Spike Cohen a lot more than Joe Jorgensen. I mean, and I didn't like him at first because I wasn't immune to the preconceived ideas from the shirtlessness and running with Vermin Supreme. So I didn't know anything about him though, and then I started listening to him, and I realized, whoa, this guy actually he gets it. Like he knows how to relate to people. And then obviously I had him on my show. I just met him yesterday. He was here in Salt Lake City.
I saw those pictures.
The speech he gave could have been Ron Paul. I mean, it was on fire. And so I honestly like him more than Joe Jorgensen. Joe Jorgensen, she says good things, but she's like, it's almost like her brain is way ahead of her mouth or something. It's hard for her to get what she's thinking out of her mouth. It's weird. It's like it's being held back, and I don't know. I mean, I think she's obviously better than either the two idiots or Howie Hawkins, but still, like, I mean, she's, I don't know. She's not the greatest speaker, I guess, is what I would say about her. So.
Yeah, I was definitely mad at Spike in the beginning. The shirtless thing was just childish and petty.
Yeah.
And that's not how you start a campaign, my dude. Like, it's his first interview. Like, the first interview as the vice presidential candidate is not the time to thumb your nose at libertarians. You won. You already won.
Right.
You're not talking to libertarians anymore for the most part. You're not talking to registered L libertarians. Like, if they're the people that are bitching about you not having a shirt on, they're probably voting for Joe Jorgensen because they're probably a prag asshole.
Yeah.
So you've got that vote. The conversation with them is over for the most part. Like, this is now the general.
Right.
And they finally kicked into general mode about almost 2.5 months into their campaign, and now they're doing good. But they wasted 2 months of campaigning on bickering and figuring out a logo and figuring out whose dick was bigger, and they just wasted everyone's time.
Yeah. So I'm not going to name any names here, but I've had a lot of people on my show, so I've heard some insider info as to how the campaign's going. And from what they're saying, it actually reminds me of the Tulsi campaign, just the complete disarray and lack of
the clusterfuck.
Yeah. No, I mean,
I know dozens of people that have reached out to try to volunteer with the campaign, want to knock doors, want to put up signs, want to do this, want to do that. A lot of them are semi-coordinated because they did Tulsi.
That's why I said semi-coordinated. So, no,
I mean, we had like 4 good people the entire national campaign. I mean, I was all right. Noah was cool. Like, Nitcha had her shit together half the time. We had a couple of all right people that I would trust to work a campaign again. And like a lot of those people have reached out to Joe or the campaign and just heard nothing back. I don't even know who their volunteer coordinator is.
Yeah.
Not that most people knew that I was Tulsi's deputy volunteer coordinator either. But.
Yeah. I mean, what's kind of telling is how much steam I've been able to pick up in the libertarian circle on Twitter and YouTube, and like I know a ton of people in the Libertarian Party now, and I'm like sort of a household name in some ways. Like I went to this event last night, and 5 people there were like, "Hey, you're that Naturalist Capitalist guy, aren't you?" I was like, "Yeah." That says a lot more about the Libertarian Party than it says about me, in my opinion. It's like, wow, that didn't take much. That should take a little more effort than that, you'd think, to be that big of a voice.
Yeah, I mean, well, let's be honest. You got lucky a little bit on that video.
Yeah, on YouTube. Yeah, definitely.
And blew the fuck. Yeah.
Yes.
But I mean, that's awesome. It is great that we have that kind of a community online that. I mean, I'm a little bit over 850 followers on Twitter now after being at 150 2 months ago.
Yeah.
We're growing, we're interacting with each other, we're coalescing. There are multiple caucuses that have been created like within national and state parties and movements. There's a movement to overthrow a couple of state committees right now that I've been clued in on. There's movement in the Libertarian Party now, and it's great. I love to see it. It's been great to watch people blow up and watch Joe gain steam and people like Brad and people like Tom in New York's 52nd district. We've just seen these people be able to grow over the last couple of years, and it's fucking awesome.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's that whole no libertarian under 1,000 hashtag that went around. Some people were like, "Oh, this is so fucking gay," and it kind of was, but it's like, okay, well, we've got to do this type of thing if we're going to organize, you know, like
Yeah.
you look left, like that no comrades under 1,000 thing, like that took off like crazy. And then we tried a couple different hashtags. There was like no liberty under, I forget, and they didn't take off. And then Adam Kokesh started one, and then that like took off. And it was kind of dumb, but it's like, who cares? Like, if you want to organize people and get people interacting with each other, you've got to do collectivist things, even though we're libertarian. Like, you've got to. I mean, I don't feel hypocritical being a libertarian, because my goal is dismantling the state. You know, like we're the only movement that wants to do that. So I don't feel hypocritical being a part of that. You know, if I were a Republican or something, then yeah, I'd feel some hypocrisy. But the whole idea is to have the government leave us alone. So I don't feel bad at all, like getting involved and pushing for candidates that want to dismantle the state.
Right.
You know, it doesn't hurt one bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you're pro-liberty, if you're anti-establishment, anti-cronyism, corporatism, you know, I will back you up. I will support you at least a little bit. You know, I love talking about Tiffany Caban from Queens. She ran for district attorney last year, and she was a full-blown socialist endorsed by AOC and like the New York State Squad. You know, that's basically what it is. They're all friends of AOC's, and they walk around and get coffee together and post on Instagram together. It's adorable. So I call them the Squad also. It's what it is. And I've actually met all of them, and they're fucking awesome humans, and I love them. But Tiffany is the most important one, in my opinion, because as district attorney, it does not matter one single solitary fuck what her economic policy is.
Yeah.
I don't have to care. So I don't care that you're a socialist. I don't.
Yeah.
But day one, as DA, which she has the power to do, unlike Joe Jorgensen as president, no recreational drug crimes will be prosecuted in the county of Queens. No consensual sex work crimes will be prosecuted in the county of Queens. You know, we're just achieving these big libertarian roadblocks that we've been trying to achieve for years.
Right.
And the LP wouldn't back her.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I would, you know, vote for Tulsi Gabbard as a congresswoman, but as president, absolutely, because the things she had power over, I was in total agreement with. You know, like her expansion of social programs and gun control and that type of stuff. Like, she can't do anything but sign a piece of paper if Congress gives it to her. So, yeah, I mean, you should. That you got to be pragmatic. Although I have made a pledge, and this might. I mean, I'm not going to vote for any Republicans or Democrats anymore. I don't care. Like, if you're Green Party or Independent, I'll look at you. I'm not just going to vote for Libertarians. But even if the Democrats and Republicans put forward a good candidate, after this year with the rigging I've seen, I'm done supporting that system. I mean, it's not about the person. It's about the party you're representing. I'm not going to give any money to it. I'm not going to give any votes to it. I'm not going to advocate for it. So Tulsi or Rand Paul, like, if you guys want me to ever vote for you again, you've got to leave your parties. You know, and I mean, your parties are not making you guys look good either. Both of you are compromising your values like crazy, and it drives me nuts. So cut it out.
Right. I think that the other party that I would say, I don't know if it exists in Utah, but in New York we have the I think it's called the Serving the America Party, something like that. The SAM Party is how they always call it. They're fairly solid. They ran a gubernatorial race in 2018 and achieved ballot access in basically their first race. And it was a bipartisan ticket, which I liked. You know, the governor candidate was the former mayor of Syracuse, Stephanie Miner. And her running mate was a Republican from like White Plains, who I actually met the day before Election Day. I was out canvassing for Larry Sharp, and he stopped and he had a conversation with me about like what we agreed on, because he was legitimately trying to earn my vote. He thought that while I was standing there with a Larry Sharp shirt on and a big ass Larry Sharp sign, he was going to convince me to vote for him and Stephanie the following day.
Yeah.
And he gave it his best shot. And And if I didn't care about the LP and Larry to the level that I did, he would have had me sold. I think that they're kind of a weird party, and I'm not sure what their real purpose is and what they're trying, like their plan is, but they've put up some decent people, and I would be intrigued to support them in a couple of races that I know are happening probably next year.
Yeah, I mean, Utah is. I just got my first exposure to the Utah Libertarian Party, and with all the candidates they have, I can pretty much down ballot vote Libertarian in my district, so that's kind of cool.
That is something that I would love to be able to say in any other place that I've lived.
Yeah, I got to meet the governor, the gubernatorial candidate, and the U.S. congressional candidate last night. That was pretty cool. So I'm hoping to have them on my show soon. I got the card from one of them, and hopefully we'll work that out. So
there we go, moving up in the world, my friend. Well, actually, I don't know. Is that a step down from a VP candidate?
Yeah, I mean,
you can really only go up to like Joe and then Ron Paul or something like that.
That's it. And
Gary Johnson, I guess.
No, that's definitely down for Ron Paul. Yeah.
Well, I meant up from Spike. Maybe.
Oh, that's debatable in my mind. I like Spike more, so.
That's debatable in a lot of people's mind, I think. Gary Johnson is on my bucket list. Like, I very much hope that I meet before I die. But there's a lot of people I disagree with. Like, AOC's on my bucket list, too.
Yeah. I mean, I would like to meet Ron Paul, definitely. Even Rand Paul still. I mean, with Rand, like, there's a lot of... he's the guy who brought me into the liberty movement. So it's been actually it's been a long divorce. And as we said earlier, like I'm never going to cancel him because there's still plenty that's good about him. But he's just not the icon that I was hoping he'd be. Because in 2016, when I got brought in to the movement, I was like, wow, this guy's great. And then just seeing him not be great, just be kind of a good Republican is just that kind of sucks.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's been some pretty severe letdowns in the last year or so of politics. Watching the New York City elections last year was a letdown. Watching the Democratic primary this year was a letdown. Watching Rand Paul sell out was a letdown. Watching Tulsi Gabbard sell out was a letdown. Watching Andrew Yang sell out was, I think, the biggest letdown.
Oh yeah.
Maybe Rand might make me more sad. But because I saw it in Rand, he's been kissing up to Trump the whole time. So him making a speech at the RNC, not surprised. Andrew Yang just surprising everyone. While Tulsi, while Bernie, I think even Warren was still in the race endorsing Joe Biden as a commentator on CNN. That was the ultimate sellout.
Yeah.
But then he redeemed himself by actually not being as bad as everybody else that I just mentioned for the last 6 months.
Yeah. Although I've been very hard on Tulsi, but I'll defend her now. She, in my mind, has actually been, as far as sheep herding goes, she's done the best. Her voting record's been horrendous the last few months, but as far as convincing people they need to vote for Biden, she's actually done the best out of everybody. I think so far. So.
Yeah, I mean, she's definitely gone a little bit crazy with some of the Trace Act and the CARES Act and that kind of stuff, though.
Yeah.
So I do appreciate her actions during the NDAA because she sneaked in a little thing, and then still voted against it.
Yeah.
But it still passed. So she got to keep her morals by voting against it and achieve something at the same time. And that is why she's not running again, because she would lose.
Yeah.
Because nobody likes her anymore.
Yeah, some people are saying she's going to run for governor of Hawaii. I'm wondering in what universe she would win right now.
She's got 2 years to redeem herself within the eyes of the Democratic establishment. I think she could win.
So she looks like working on the redeeming through the voting record right now.
Yeah.
But
And the capitulating to the like masks and the lockdowns and that stuff. I mean, I'm definitely like, wear a fucking mask if you're in public. Like, just
that's
smart.
what this is, by the way. Just
Yeah.
opinion on. So
I actually just got.
Ooh, wow. Are you selling those? Is that merchandise yet? Or
Not yet. Within the next like month or so, I intend for them to be, but I don't have. I'm currently missing the capital to invest and have stock of it. So I have 6. I have 3 that say "Fight for Liberty" and 3 that say "Elect the Revolution."
I should do one that has my mustache and it says the Naturalist Capitalist on it.
That would be fantastic.
Oh man.
I can hook you up with the girl that made them for sure.
Okay.
Got you. Well, it has been a fantastic conversation as always. I love hearing your take. I think we agree on a lot, but we talk about a lot of different things. So it's not talking to you is not as much of an echo chamber as most of my friends is. So it's always a good time. So
yeah, definitely. Thanks for having me on. I'll have you on my show again sometime soon for sure.
Yeah, we just keep playing show tag, just back and forth. But take a couple of seconds, minutes, give people your handles and everything else, how people can find you.
Yeah. So I am Naturalist Capitalist on YouTube. You'll find me there. And then on Twitter, I'm at Reed Coverdale, also Naturalist Capitalist. And I'm pushing congressional, Senate, down ballot libertarian candidates because that's where we should be focusing. Brad Barron could win this Senate race, and if he does, that is historic. I mean, if he unseats Mitch McConnell. So, all the guys that I'm promoting on YouTube and then on Twitter, I'm constantly retweeting their stuff and sharing stuff about them. Please go give them a look. Give them donations if you can. Yeah. Follow them. Just do whatever you can because that's where the real battleground is this year, in my opinion. So.
Yeah, guys, his Twitter feed has one of the better collections of solid libertarian candidates that are running in the country, and a lot of these races are very far down ballot. $10-15 for Joe Jorgensen is not going to do a whole hell of a lot in a national ad campaign. $15 from a lot of you to someone like that's running for state house or mayor or something like that is possibly the difference between winning and losing. So, check out his Twitter feed. Give a couple of bucks to some people that are trying to make changes happen locally, and look up your local libertarian party. You probably have a candidate running in your neighborhood that you don't know about. So, which is probably their fault, not yours. But look them up anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
If they haven't knocked on your door yet, they're fucking up. But that means that they need your help. So go help them. All right, well, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching, and we'll be back again with another episode of the Fight for Liberty show. Have a good one.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to click the like and subscribe buttons below. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fight for Liberty, and support the channel at patreon.com/fightforliberty. And as always, keep up the fight.